Thank you for joining us on WIMG 1300 AM and WPHY Verizon Channel 28. Yours truly, I'm Gerald Truchart, a school board member, chair of the Family and Community Engagement Committee, as well as the Policy Committee. We're on today on Trenton Board of Ed TV radio, sponsored by WIMG 1300 AM, 4-time Stellar Award-winning station, as well as WPHY Verizon Channel 28 TV station, Channel 28. We're so thankful for our sponsors for sponsoring our TV radio broadcast with Trenton Public Schools and Trenton Board of Education. And for the next several weeks, we'll be having a conversation with our superintendent, James Earle. We have on a call this afternoon, the broadcast, Wilfredo Ortiz, our assistant superintendent of secondary. We also have on the call this afternoon, Denise Crease, amen, our parent liaison and coordinator, as well as a part of our district staff, and a great host of other folks who are here this afternoon. So we're going to start with our first question to the superintendent. How are you feeling, Mr. Earle?
I'm feeling great. Of course, it's been very interesting but exciting. It's as I mentioned before, a lot of what I expected. There's lots of work to do and areas that we can make immediate impact in as a team. And I'm looking forward to doing that. So each day I come here, I think there's an opportunity for us to do something great for young people. I've had the opportunity to visit all of our summer school programs and see our students in action and our teachers working either in the building or outside the building. I've had an opportunity to see a few summer camps that were in action at the high school, and I think at maybe Monument or one of the schools. I'm still learning all the names, but just to see students in the building, smiling, excited, teachers working with young people, talking about, so many people are approaching me, talking about next year and our future together, just gives me hope that we can do good work together. So I'm really excited. Like I said, it's exactly what I thought. It's challenging. There's lots of work ahead, but I think it's all doable. And we're going to learn how to work and collaborate with each other to get things done. So it's an exciting time. The most daunting task is we're facing, the opening of school with COVID still lingering. And so how do we keep students safe? How do we keep staff safe so that, those people who are in our spaces in district can keep their families safe? So a lot of our decisions early on will be about the health and safety of not only our students and staff, but their families and everyone surrounding us. Being really smart about the decisions we make, being excited about opening and being able to get back to some normal, but understanding that the Delta variant is alive and well, and our young children, they don't have an opportunity for vaccines, and that some of our staff and children have chosen not to receive the vaccine. So we have to take that all into account and protect everyone that walks in our doors. So that's probably the big challenge. I know that there are huge challenges in front of us, but we all want to be healthy. If we're healthy and we're safe, we can tackle almost anything. So, but an exciting time. I still have great energy, and I'm looking forward to every day, looking forward to the work we're planning to do every day.
And we've got some great inspiration happening. And the thing with the 800-meter gold medalists and 4x400 gold medal. I mean, we've got some inspirations there to catapult us into greatness, man. I know we've got some challenges with the Delta variant and, coming back to school. And as a parent, I did receive your message, your letter, a message from the superintendent, and it was so well received. I'm definitely for mask wearing, 100%. Mandating masks. I think the governor came out, as you said, on Friday with the mask requirement. Have you received any pushback from the community in terms of the mask requirement? In some states, in some cities, they're getting some pushback on it.
I haven't received much, but anytime there's pushback, I'm certainly willing to, have that conversation via email or in person or on the phone or whatever it takes. I think that the decision by the governor, even if he had not made that decision we're in Trenton, and one of the things that I'm wise to do is to, check with the state health officials and our county health officials to see where we are, Trenton residents, and everyone involved to make sure we're making decisions about the people we serve. Other districts might make different decisions. So I was already in a place where I felt like at the very least on that day that the message was coming out, I actually wrote it well in advance that we would be in mask. Now, we also know that 10 days is a long time. 10 days from now on the 20th, we don't know what the rest of the world will look like. And that may shift. I mean, if things go in a different direction, we can make different decisions. This situation will be fluid until the day we start. And as we get closer and closer, we may make different decisions. But for now, it is certainly in our best interest, our children's best interest, that we wear masks in the building. We'll be smart about mask breaks and other things that can make it more comfortable in the building when we're all together. Opportunities to get outside in the air, bringing fresh air in through windows that will open. So we're going to be plexiglass dividers. Our team's really focused on those things that make it a little bit easier for us to absorb mask wearing in school. I certainly don't want to wear it in the building, but I understand what it means to be healthy and safe, and we want to continue to push that. And just a quick note on a thing, Mo, I had an opportunity to go over to high school, Trenton Central High School, with about close to 200 students who were here in summer school for different reasons, for camps, and some coming to do extended school days and different things like that. And we were able to create a watch party and sit down and watch it together. It was just awesome. And I think it just shows every child, although they see examples in their homes every day about how you can be successful, but how someone who sat in the same seats, walked the same halls, the same streets, lived in the same homes, can do great things. And so we're seeing Trenton students all over the place. I see my ex-students from 15 years ago doing amazing work as adults. And so looking forward to continuing that strong tradition. So it was really exciting to be there with young people talking about a thing and what she had accomplished on that day.
Yeah, no, and being 19, I mean, 19 and winning those 2 gold medals is just a testimony to the great work that we're doing here in the capital city of Trenton, not only in the area of sports and athletics, but she's a scholar athlete.
Yes.
And that's so very important. I read, as I read through your letter, and many folks have received a letter who are parents and community members. You talk about like the daily screening process and our COVID testing and vaccination partnership with the city of Trenton, and they're coming into our schools. Can you talk more about some of the precautions that we're taking to help with mitigating the disease, the COVID-19?
Well, I think that, the teachers who were able to come and students who were able to come in person had an opportunity to experience what it feels like and looks like. There's constant cleaning and wiping doors and wiping tables and plexiglass dividers. Our custodial staff has done a tremendous job. I walked into Trenton thinking, wow, this is how it's done. They're really doing a good job of making sure things are clean. We have been really specific about making sure we have proper airflow and air conditioning where we can add it, because airflow is really critical in the fight against COVID. We're going to continue to screen. Our goal is, hopefully parents will continue to fill out the health survey prior to students coming. Don't send your child if they're exhibiting 2 or more symptoms. We'll send more information about that next week. We're going to have ongoing communications so that we didn't give you a 7-page letter. We thought we would do 1 or 2 pages at a time. But the goal is to continue to do those things. We'll have temperature scanning every morning and throughout the day if needed. Students who exhibit high fevers will be held in our health office. We'll have a wellness office for students who exhibit symptoms of COVID. And it could be just one symptom. I think the primary thing is we want to limit exposure. So some of the health and safety measures that we put in place at the end of the year, none of those are going away. Plus, we want to be clear to visitors, please visit and come to the building when needed. That's going to be critical, that it's not an open door, because we're working with the population inside the building, getting them to follow health and safety protocols. And we don't want visitors just stopping by, but you are certainly welcome when you have a purpose to come visit, see a teacher, advocate for your child, whatever it needs. We want to be just really mindful about limiting those opportunities as much as possible, but we also want the public to know our doors are open to support you and serve you. So you're going to see, I talked about all the, daily health screenings, temperature checks, cleaning, reaching out. There's a different protocol for a vaccinated student. So older students, 12 and 17, who are vaccinated, who may be exposed, will have different protocols from students who may not be vaccinated. They may be able to remain in school if exposed, as opposed to an unvaccinated student. We're encouraging all students and families to get vaccinated because it has different meaning when or if there is an exposure. So we'll continue to practice those things. We want to be health conscious. We want to listen to health experts. And I'm not a health expert, so I will listen to those and make my decisions based on that information and be guided in that way, certainly where it's in the best interest of our organization, our schools, our students, our staff, and everyone involved.
And that's a Superintendent Earle. Can I just mention that we are also partnering with the city regarding the ability for our parents and our students to get vaccinated. Tomorrow, Wednesday, August 11th, where students can actually get tested at Parker and at Mott Elementary Schools. They can get vaccinated, and we're giving the vaccine, and we're also doing testing this whole week. So we want to just let parents know that it's important to know your status is what we're saying, so that you can take the appropriate actions. And we're doing it all week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday of next week. We have a listing of all the schools where this is going to take place, and it will be on our website. And so we'll be reaching out to our parents. Please take advantage of the opportunity to get tested or to get vaccinated. We're giving out Pfizer for students ages 12 and above. The Moderna will be available, and Johnson & Johnson as well. So we are doing everything that we can as a district to keep you safe at school, but also we need our parents and our community to do what's right in order to get the appropriate vaccination so that we're all safe.
And just to follow up on that, to add to that, that was I know Mr. Ortiz said it was the city. So we're actually working with the city and the state. The state of New Jersey Health Department reached out to us and wanted to offer opportunities to have testing so that if students in our city are positive, they can quarantine for the appropriate number of days and go straight from there to testing if you're negative. And we said yes. And so I think we're one of the only districts who partnered with the state so far. I think there might have been one other, but we said yes right away. And it was, believe it or not, a 24-hour turnaround. And that's why you saw, if you are a parent, you saw us resend letters, because we were changing, it was being planned on the move and we were trying to get it done quickly. But we're just excited that the state thought about Trenton and that the city, the mayor's office got us engaged. So it's an exciting opportunity for our families and our students.
I want to open it up to any questions from folks who are participating with us on our broadcast in our community. If there's any questions for Superintendent James or Earle at this time, we just want to kind of give a break for that. So folks, if you have any questions at this time, you can raise your hand or put your question in the chat and we'll had that question asked to Mr. James Earle. We have a question from Dejan, Ms. Figueroa. Besides vaccines, how are our children doing academically since the pandemic, ? Will extra measures to be put in place to catch up for some students who may fell behind during the pandemic? It was a rough time for families. Just curious where our children are with academics and learning.
So yes, there were measures before I walked in the door. There was a new position, learning loss teachers. And we don't necessarily like the word loss, but we know there will potentially be gaps in learning. And it's probably for all students around the country. No one was prepared for what the pandemic presented. So what we're going to do is be prepared to open our doors. We need to find out where our students truly are. A number of our students we are discovering, and just some early data, did really well in the virtual environment. So while we believe that loss may have happened for everyone, what type of loss? Was it social loss, not being around friends? Was it loss of a family member or a friend because they passed due to COVID? Academically, we truly don't know. We're anticipating that there's been some loss, but a lot of school is not all academic. It is a social environment. I think the big thing is how do we reintegrate our children and our staff socially with each other, to be comfortable to be distanced at 3 feet, to wear a mask. And then we're going to start assessing early on, Ms. Figueroa, how they are doing academically, first 2 weeks, first 3 weeks. That's where we're going to get our data about how where students are scoring. And then we're going to make decisions about how we support them. We're going into this with counselors, teachers, learning loss teachers, new curricular ideas, thinking that we're going to address some level of loss, but our students do have to give us that data. And once they do, we'll act accordingly. We believe that students, as I said, some have done really well. We didn't see a large gap. One of our staff members, supervisors, shared some data yesterday that he saw in just some students. The differences even in a special ed student and a general education student was still about the same at this point, which means our students probably did well in some cases. And I don't know what cohort that was, but it's going to be important for us to get data and make those decisions. We are prepared for extended opportunities through grant funding. You know, we have ESSER funding, so we're going to use those funds to support students who struggle once we identify those gaps. So there are tons of opportunities. We assume that our students have fallen behind just simply because they weren't in their natural school environments. So we're going to act accordingly. We're not going to wait. We're going to be prepared when we get the first kind of week or 2 weeks of information about where they are. So thank you for that question. We think we're prepared. And so we're going to get to work as soon as they walk in the door.
Thank you. I appreciate your response. Please let me know if I can support your efforts in any way. God bless you. Jocelyn Steele, hello. Will there be any adjustments to class sizes?
So at this time, we're full day, full program. And so the governor expects us to walk back into classrooms and be exactly like we are. And social distance. If you read the Road Forward plan, it says social distance when possible. So we're working, I just left a meeting prior to this talking about lunch areas, class areas. Do we need to purchase extra desks and extra tables? Because maybe learning will take place in different places. You have a class of 24 and it's tight. Can we rotate 6 people outside the classroom and have a monitor out there? We're exploring every idea to relieve space in cafeterias, in classrooms, and in hallways. We're just going to ask them to keep their distance from each other and move on 2 different sides of the hallway. All the things that we practice, but with a much larger group now, because we have everyone back in the building. So I think the answer is where we can make adjustments, we will. And where we can't, we're going to have masks on, plexiglass dividers up. And it'll be the expectation, unfortunately, if we can open a window to create airflow. We already have air filtration systems in the rooms that circulate air. So we're counting on all of these things to help us mitigate any potential for exposure. So at this time, we'll go back into class where we are, and we've already made some decisions for reductions in those larger areas. And where we can influence that going forward, we will. So I appreciate the question. That's been one of the issues that we've struggled with, particularly around lunches. Teachers can be strategic in rooms with other spaces and hallways and libraries to be able to create space. It's harder when you go in a lunchroom. You have to create extra lunch spaces. So we've been working on those things, and I think each building will have a plan that addresses that as we go forward.
Yeah, I think that's an opportunity there. Also, we have a lot of our schools, Mr. Earle, who have where we have green space, specifically at the high school, the outside areas at the high school, yeah. MLK, Kilmer, and other schools where there's an opportunity to go outside for lunch, and it was, of course, with proper supervision and so forth. So I know those are areas that you're looking at as well. Just want to continue to open up. We want this to be interactive with our community, with our superintendent. It's a conversation with Superintendent James Earle. He'll be on for the next several weeks as we begin to work through the plans of implementing the plans of opening school. So I want to make sure that we give everyone who is on the call, on the broadcast this afternoon, an opportunity to ask a question. Either raise your hand, I'll allow you to unmute, and or put a question in the chat. One of the questions I like to lead with is vaccination coverage rates here in the city of Trenton, and possible where we are in terms from the health department. Has there been any conversation with the health department in terms of our vaccination coverage rates and where we stand in those areas?
So when I had the discussion about our vaccination and testing sites with the state, the commissioner of the state health department, she talked about being around 39, 40, 41% of individuals eligible for vaccination in our area. So we're under 50%, as you know, that was as of, I think I spoke to her on Thursday last week to get our, and that was one of the big reasons for opening up opportunities right away before school starts, to see if we can get students who are eligible, tested, potentially vaccinated, and also, just as a point of note, parents or adults can also attend these vaccination and testing areas, pop-up sites on that flyer to get your test or a vaccine. So if you haven't done that yet, please spread that message. And I think we did put that out there. Adults are welcome. So that's what I know right now. I don't know hard data. We're going to start some survey information to our students, particularly 7-12. We know we can't force them to tell us, but if they're willing to tell us if they're vaccinated, that gives us an idea. If we have 80% of our population vaccinated, we might be able to operate somewhat differently with masks on in the building. So the reason we're going to be pushing that information as we get started, please let us know so that we can be mindful. You know, think about if you have 100% of your population, your student population, and your teacher population vaccinated, do you need to wear a mask? And that's not a question that I want an answer to, but that's a thought question. So the more we know about vaccination status, the better we can do about planning, thinking ahead. And it might be by school that we learn, here's the scenario. But right now, from what she shared with me, and that was just a conversation, I don't have that in print, but it was like 39 to 42%, if I remember her correctly.
Natalie?
Hi, Superintendent Earle. It's great to see you on here, and thank you for your time today. My name is Natalie. I am the co-founder and executive director of Homeworks Trenton. We are a free community-based after school residential program for high school girls, specifically in Trenton. So mainly in TCHS and in ninth grade academy. So basically from Sunday nights to Friday mornings, our girls stay overnight in our dorm. We take them to and from school. We do programming focused on academics, life skills, civic engagement, women empowerment. They have a family style meal and then stay overnight in our dorms over the weekdays and go home on the weekends. But really what we're doing here is creating a community specifically for Black and brown women to reclaim power over their cultures, identities, and experiences. And just as a side note, I know we mentioned a thing when I was getting my teaching certificate at TCHS. I actually had a huge honor to teach a thing, and I saw her on TV on the Olympics, but I can attest to her as a student. I mean, she is one of the most incredible, humble people I've ever met, and just wanted to also give her a shout out. But yeah, I think we're very excited to say we were actually doing in-person programming last year. We had all of our kids at our space doing virtual schooling. We had, I believe, in the fall term, a 94% attendance rate for specifically our kids. And we're very excited to continue doing our programming and actually go back to residential this September. And we will have 13 scholars in total. And so that being said, as this is, I know we're all going in, or Trenton's going in person this year, and you talked a little bit about learning loss and everything. How would you, as Homeworks as a community partner, how would you want us, what can we do to best accommodate the scholars that we have in our program and our parents? And how do you see us working together, especially as this year is obviously going to be different with the Delta variant?
So I think it's going to be important, as I said, once we get students back in the building and you start to see them, that we create a line of communication with each other, because you may see something when you're serving and working with the young ladies that we don't know. And we may, if we know there's an advocate outside of school, that would be great. And I don't know if you already do that, but that would be awesome, particularly where it's related to any type of loss. If a student's not connecting or students acting out, and we know there's a resource that we can say, hey, what's happening? Do you know? Maybe you can tell us, because we want to even look at discipline different. We don't want there to be the code of conduct that's the law. We want to look at a child, make a decision, learn a bit more about them, and then see how we approach this from a restorative lens. So we may be able to partner with you, and you can tell us, maybe there's a challenge a student's having that we don't know about. Maybe there's something in learning and an approach that we need to take. So it would be great if we can continue to maybe even have a meeting after the meeting to know more about how you serve, what you do, and who you, like the ages, who you connect you with somebody in those areas. Make sure we have regular meetings talking about how we serve non-traditional students. Because I believe all students in our country right now are non-traditional. We have these old traditional buildings, structures, rules, policies, and students have long passed us. They're using every bit of technology. They communicate different, and we have to get caught up and hold some traditional values true, but we also have to help guide them in the right direction. So you and I, with Mr. Ortiz and my team, your team should come together to make sure we know what you actually do, how you serve children, who they are, because I think if we know they're advocates out here for children, beyond their homes and their parents and the people who love them, that's going to be hugely powerful. I mean, it just is, because the more the merrier in some of these cases.
Great, thank you so much. I'll definitely be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from our participants on the broadcast this afternoon? We've been having a great conversation with Superintendent James Earle today, one of several conversations over the next several weeks on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. I want to thank everyone for participating this afternoon. But again, we'd like you to have a conversation with the superintendent. Any additional questions from our participants? Raise your hand, put it in the chat. One of the questions I have, Mr. Earle, is, as you know, during the pandemic in that virtual environment, many of our students did very well in the virtual environment, and they actually gravitated. Some even did better in the virtual environment, to say the least. How do we as a district begin to incorporate a style of virtual learning in a post-pandemic environment where we're in person, but at the same time, those students may want, in other words, how do we utilize that virtual world in an in-person environment to help those students even progress even better and use those skills that they've learned? There you go.
The first thing is I just had a meeting with the high school principals and assistant principals. And the first thing we needed to establish right away is that we are one-to-one. Every student has a device. All right. And if you can't do that, then it's almost impossible to say we're going to do all virtual. You can do your very best. So we're going to make sure we get Chromebooks or laptops or whatever we determine that we'll use in their hands, because this is a great opportunity for teachers now to use cross-curricular work where you're connecting in your classroom with another classroom in another district, or some social and emotional or global competence work in another country, using the standards that we're taught, that the state says we have to learn, and being non-traditional in the way we teach them. And that's what the virtual world allows you to do. It allows you to stay where you are, but really explore. It's no different than we are on this meeting. Imagine trying to do this when everybody has work schedules and trying to get everyone to the same location. You know, you're in a classroom, you can talk to students from Hamilton Township District, do a math lesson together. And that's more exciting sometimes than just having the teacher work with you alone. But we're gonna use those virtual platforms that students used at the end of the year. A lot of those will be carried over. Our teachers are, I was just, one of the assistant principals were saying that they were a bit disappointed because all the students didn't have their Chromebooks when they came to summer school, because teachers wanted to get back to some of the virtual instruction. So our staff has the appetite for it. We just need to deliver the devices and then really be mindful and purposeful about what we choose as the platform for learning. Some of the digital content we use, particularly in the early grades, kids love using technology and reading and getting them excited. So meeting them where they are. So I think there's great opportunity. And I've only hit a few things. I'm sure if a teacher was here, they could tell you about the number of ways they were planning to use technology. So there's just some great things. The pandemic was painful for all of us, our families, but there's some benefits and some things we learn once we get through some of the pain, and that doesn't go away overnight. So I'm very respectful of that. There's tremendous loss. I mean, people lost parents. And so we're going to be focused on taking care of the child initially, and then we're going to get back to, what can we use that was so powerful? If we found out a student was not performing well in the regular environment before the pandemic, and all of a sudden they caught a fire and they're doing really well in their course, we need to actually just go to that student and say, why? What was the difference? What turns you on? And then we should borrow from the students and learn. If a teacher all of a sudden went from good to great using technology, find out why and see what we can duplicate. So I think there's just unlimited opportunities for what we use. We don't want to forget that the human touch, though. on this. What we didn't like about being virtual was we weren't able to, and I don't mean physically touch, but touch each other, talk to each other, be in each other's spaces. So it's going to be critical that we reestablish that we're human. Let's talk to each other. There's conversation. We know there'll be a time where our world goes back to that. And so we want to reinforce those things, but take advantage of what was really good about the pandemic. So hope that answers some of it.
Thank you, Superintendent. We have time for one more question. I do want to remind our participants that our superintendent in this conversation will continue over the next several weeks on Tuesday. We do have a hand up. I'll get to you right away, Ms. Boyd. We'll give the last question to Ms. Boyd, and then after that, we'll close out. But again, just to reiterate, we'll be back here next week, 4 o'clock in the following week, for a 3-week series on a conversation with the superintendent prior to the opening of school. So there will be additional opportunities to speak to the superintendent and have a conversation with him and ask him questions. So go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
Okay, so my question is, because of the pandemic and the cases that are now rising each day, are you guys still thinking of sending the kids back to school, or could it possibly be virtual again? Because for someone in my situation, I have medical conditions. I am on 2 different type of immunosuppressants. At this point right now, I'm not really comfortable with the shots and everything like that. How does this help someone in my condition with sending my kids back to a school where I don't feel that they are going to be protected and that I'm going to be protected as well?
So we discussed this morning because this is an area where we feel like the governor has not helped us, because he's made it clear that we're to return in full in-person instruction all day long. But there's some conditions, I guess. If you have a situation personally for you, that's something that you need to share with us and let us see what we can work with. Because we know that a student can be virtual if it's COVID related. But there are also extenuating circumstances that we might have to get approval for a family, like in your situation. So
Okay.
I would prefer that you and I talk offline a bit more, just so that I can have the information that you're willing to share and that I can share. And if I need to get approval beyond me, because we're told that everyone has to come back, no one can go virtual unless there's a COVID, unless it's related to COVID. But your situation is somewhat related to COVID, so we need to discuss it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And you can send me, I'll put my email in this before we walk off. Make sure you send me the information, and you can send it to Mr. Ortiz if you miss me. I'm writing now.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, we thank you so much, Ms. Boyd. We want to make sure that we allow each and every one of you to ask questions. Mr. Earle has his email in the chat. And so we're going to continue this broadcast and conversation with our superintendent next week and the week after. And I want to thank each and every one of our participants, those who had questions in the chat, those who had questions, raise your hand and ask questions live. Those who had questions and didn't think they were a little apprehensive at even asking a question. I want you to know, feel assured that you're welcome to ask the superintendent questions. He's open to answering questions from our community and from our participants on our radio broadcasts, our TV program. So we just want to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of our hearts. And Mr. Ortiz also has his email in the chat for additional resources and information and asking to answer questions and for you to ask questions. So we're here to support you. I'm a member of the Board of Education. Again, I serve on the Family and Community Engagement Committee as well as the Policy Committee. Mr. Ortiz also Denise also, Mr. T also left his, we have his phone number. It looks like Denise put his phone number out there, which is good. Got his phone number out there, great. And so we're so thankful for each and every one of you. Want to thank the superintendent, Mr. James Earle, for being a part of this broadcast. Of course, he is the leadership of our district, along in partnership with the Board of Education. And we're here to serve and do great work here in the city of Trenton. And so again, thank you all. We want to thank WIMG 1300 AM and WPHY Verizon Channel 28 for hosting this on radio and TV. And we look forward to seeing each and every one of you next week. Invite a friend from the city of Trenton or those who are interested in working with the city of Trenton Public School District with Mr. Earle and the board and all of our fantastic teachers and support staff and administrators in our district to do the great work that we know that we can do. So God bless you all, and thank you so much for being a part of our broadcast. Have a good night.